It was a breathtaking evening at Silver Heights, the kind of upscale restaurant where only the elite gathered. The grand chandelier bathed the marble floors in a golden glow, while soft classical music floated through the air, setting a tone of sheer sophistication. Waiters in crisp uniforms moved effortlessly between tables, catering to the every whim of the wealthy patrons. Among them was Nathan, a young black man with a humble demeanor and a polite smile. His co-workers admired him for his dedication and kindness, but to the guests at Silver Heights, he was invisible, just another silent servant in their extravagant world. Yet, what none of them knew was that beneath his quiet exterior lay a soul overflowing with music. He was a pianist, one whose hands could weave stories far better than words ever could. But for now, his dreams remained locked away, hidden behind the role he played as a waiter. That evening, one of the most distinguished patrons was Mrs. Eleanor Whitmore. A woman of immense wealth and even greater arrogance, she was known for her sharp tongue and condescending air. Draped in a gown that shimmered like the diamonds around her neck, she sat at the most coveted table, surrounded by a circle of sycophantic friends. Her sharp gaze swept across the room, always searching for an opportunity to assert her superiority. Nathan approached her table, a tray of champagne balanced in his hands. As he carefully placed the glasses down, Mrs. Whitmore studied him with a smirk. "You're quite poised for a waiter," she remarked, her tone laced with mockery. "Tell me, do you have any talents? Or is carrying trays your only skills?" For a brief moment, Nathan hesitated, but then he answered with his usual politeness, "I play the piano, ma'am." Her eyebrows lifted in exaggerated surprise. "The piano? How intriguing. Tell me, are you any good?" "I do my best," he replied modestly. Mrs. Whitmore leaned back in her chair, clearly entertained. Well, there's a grand piano right there," she said, gesturing toward the elegant instrument in the corner. "Why don't you entertain us? Show us what you've got." The restaurant fell silent. Every eye turned toward Nathan. Some patrons exchanged skeptical glances, while others smirked, eager to see what would happen next. Nathan felt his chest tighten. It had been years since he last played in front of an audience, and now he was being put on the spot, surrounded by strangers, many of whom expected him to fail. Taking a deep breath, Nathan gave a small nod and stepped toward the piano. The room was so silent that the sound of his footsteps seemed to echo with every step. As he settled onto the bench, his fingers hovered just above the keys. A wave of memories washed over him, his late mother, the woman who had first placed his hands on a piano, who had believed in his talent when no one else had. Closing his eyes, he let the weight of the moment slip away. Then he began to play. The first notes were soft, almost hesitant, yet they carried a depth of emotion that immediately held the room captive. The melody was hauntingly beautiful, a delicate dance between sorrow and hope. As his confidence grew, the music swelled, transforming into a sweeping, powerful symphony. His fingers moved across the keys with effortless grace, each note resonating with raw, undeniable emotion. The patrons, who had once been skeptical, now sat in stunned silence. Some closed their eyes, letting the music carry them, while others leaned forward, completely enthralled. Even Mrs. Whitmore, the very woman who had set this up for her own amusement, was visibly shaken. The smug expression she had worn earlier had vanished, replaced by something far rarer, genuine astonishment. The music spoke. It told a story, not just Nathan's, but one of struggle, perseverance, and triumph. A story that transcended wealth, class, and race. By the time the final, lingering note faded into silence, the entire room remained still, holding its breath. And then, as if on cue, thunderous applause erupted. Nathan rose to his feet and took a bow, his heart pounding. He had spent so long being unnoticed, unseen, but now, every single person in the room was looking at him with admiration. Some diners wiped away tears, others clapped enthusiastically, calling for an encore. Mrs. Whitmore, however, remained frozen in her chair. She parted her lips as if to speak, but no words came. For the first time in years, She seemed truly at a loss. Finally, she managed to say, "That was extraordinary." Nathan met her gaze, his voice steady yet humble. "Thank you, ma'am." As he made his way back to the kitchen, his coworkers greeted him with wide smiles and congratulatory pats on the back. "I had no idea you could do that," one of them exclaimed. Nathan simply smiled. For the first time in a long while, he felt a deep sense of pride. A moment designed to belittle him had instead become something unforgettable. Word of his performance spread quickly. By the next day, the restaurant was flooded with calls, patrons eager to know if the piano-playing waiter would be performing again. And soon an offer came. Nathan was no longer just a waiter. He was invited to play at Silver Heights as their featured pianist. But that was only the beginning. Other doors began to open: event invitations, interest from music producers, and even a scholarship to a prestigious music academy. As for Mrs. Whitmore, she returned to Silver Heights a few weeks later. But this time she was different. There was no arrogance in her tone, no condescension in her gaze. Instead, she greeted Nathan warmly, even offering an apology. "You taught me a lesson that night," she admitted. "Talent and greatness can come from anywhere." Nathan simply nodded, his smile knowing, because he, too, had learned something that night, that his talent was his greatest weapon against prejudice and doubt, a gift that no one could ever take from him. From that night forward, Silver Heights was no longer just a job. It was the place where his dreams had taken their first step toward reality. And for everyone who had witnessed that unforgettable performance, it served as a powerful reminder. Never underestimate the quiet ones. Their potential just might leave you speechless.